Hi, I'm back again from Multimedia Science with a new software application. This time it's a teacher tool called Random Student. I remember that when I used to be observed by administrators, it was not unusual for them to count the number of times I called on each student and whether I called on the same number of girls and boys. It's pretty hard to concentrate on that type of information when you have so many other things going through your head. Your curriculum, the questions that you ask, other things going on in the room, phone calls, whether or not the administrator is looking on you, etc., etc., etc. So I devised a little tool to help you, not just when you're being observed, but to also track the students that you call on, their correct and incorrect answers over a period of time. You can use this not only for your own devices in order to see whether or not you are indeed calling on each student the same number of times, and also you can use it to show an administrator that you do indeed follow the rules over an extended period of time, no matter what happened on that one day that you were observed. Here's the opening setup menu. Let's click on the Start button. You can see that there's a number of options. Let's start off by making a class name. We'll call it class. We're going to add a student. Let's just say John, but of course you can put in more information. Joan, Albert, Steve, and you could keep on adding names to the list. What I'm going to do is I'm going to clear this student list and I'm going to load a student file that I had set up earlier. It's going to be on a desktop. And when you make these files, you want to make sure that they have an ARR extension, .arr. And you can see here's a number of names. Next, you can run random student. You can see that there's a little box that pops up that you can move around on your desktop. If you have a projector, you can make this visible to the students, or you can just have it up on your computer screen for your own information. So every time you want to call on somebody, you call or you click on Next Student. That student name comes up. You can then decide whether or not they asked you a good question is one example, or whether they answered the question correctly, and you can go on to the next student. For some reason, you might see that the particular student is in the bathroom. You can skip them, which means that they don't get chosen or shown in the compilation at the end at all. When you're done with your class, or at any point, you can go back to the main screen. You can see the number of times you called on each student and what was the yes and the no answers. And you can save the student file so that the next time that you open it, all this information will be available. You can also change the screen size if you're just doing it for your own information. You might just want to make it small so the students can't see it. You can add a student at any time. You can delete a student at any time. You just click delete or add as we did before. Another nice add-on to the program is that you may have a student that's absent. So what will happen is that they will not show up during that day's class, and then they will come back again when you run the program again. You can clear all of the number of questions. You can clear yes and no's. You can set the number of questions equal. It didn't happen here because there are no questions, but maybe you just want to start over again. So you can set, there's one student that's been absent for a while and you just want to make everybody's at 5 except for him. You can set him back to 5. There's a directions that show you exactly what each button does. There's a print button, which allows you to print out the final set of names and yes and no questions. You can also add sounds. This might be distracting to your students, but so you might want to leave that off, but it can be kind of fun. So we run it. Next student, Buddy Holly.
That does not compute.
Yes.
And this can add a little
Yes.
interest to the asking of questions. You can see here that the yeses and nos and how many questions were asked were tabulated. You can also see how the class did as a whole during your class, because the yeses and nos for this period of time are also being tracked. Finally, one of the problems that I found when using this program is that students had a tendency to kind of relax because they knew that once they were called on, that they probably would not be called on again in the near future. That's because the program makes sure that each student is called on the same number of times. Well, we can sort of finagle that one by using a randomness factor. So if you click on and make this random factor very high, that means that students will be called potentially right after twice in a row. If you make the random number very small, that means students will not be called on until all the other students have been called on. So that's the random student software. I've used it for many years and found it, not necessarily every day, but found it to be a big help in my classes. The students like it. The administrators have liked it. And it gives me some information that I can use in my teaching techniques. I can look and see, am I actually calling on the same number of girls as boys? Am I favoring one part of the class or one lab group or a couple students more than others? So it's kind of an interesting piece of software, and I hope that you'll find it interesting. Thanks.